So I probably didn't have to make a video on this, but I just felt like I wanted to make a video on this. But basically, Ubisoft put out a 20-year anniversary thing on Splinter Cell and talked about, you know, what the game means to them and how the remake is coming along, and I felt like I needed to talk about it. Now, the reason I felt like I needed to talk about it is because almost a year ago I put out a video basically saying that Splinter Cell should never come back, and the gist of that video was me essentially saying that, you know, Ubisoft hasn't had the best track record recently, and they tend to make the same game over and over again with its sort of open world, endless side mission design. And if they made another Splinter Cell, that's kind of how I see things going, or at least how I thought things would go if they were to put another Splinter Cell together. However, this latest video that they've put out has given me some hope. The video in general is them kind of covering what made Splinter Cell so great, and what is actually interesting in this video is that I did notice that at no point did they mention any of the Splinter Cell games after Chaos Theory. So I'm hoping that their mentality for the development of this game is very much focused on recreating the vibe of those first three games. All of the points that they touch on what made the first three games so great, I'm fully on board with and 100% agree with, you know, in terms of how it was a bit of a technical marvel, but it also had solid gameplay, a lot of great tension, good gadgets, you know, fun stuff like interrogation mechanics. So I'm hoping all this stuff again carries over into what it is that they're putting together next. So currently this thing is titled Splinter Cell Remake. Now, I don't know what that means in terms of what the game is going to be, or even if that's the official title, or whether it's going to change at some point later. At this point, I'm kind of trying to figure out what type of remake they're actually making, because there are two ways they can kind of go with this. There's the, we're remaking this, but we're basically going to change a lot of things apart from the story. Or they could go the direction in which I would prefer them to go, which is the Resident Evil 2 version of a remake, which is basically, we're doing everything we possibly can to keep this as it was, but we're just going to modernize the parts that need modernizing. Now, the way that they talk about this remake in this 20th anniversary video is very much, oh, you know, we like these parts and we like these parts, and now we can make it again, but with the power of the new consoles. So stuff like audio and lighting and AI and animation is all improved. All of that is awesome. Sign me up right now. The original Splinter Cell still holds up in my opinion, and if you want to put that all together again but with the power of the new consoles, yes, take my money now, no problem whatsoever, I'm sold. So hopefully what we end up with whenever this thing releases is basically a more realistic version of the original game. Now, the biggest concern I had roughly a year ago when I made the video saying that Splinter Cell was better off dead was that I assumed if Ubisoft put together another Splinter Cell game that it would most likely be some giant open world sort of carbon copy of like a Ghost Recon or a Division or Far Cry, that whole thing, which I'm not quite into. I mean, it can be fun in short periods, but it's such a bloated approach to game design in general, in my opinion, and it's not. It's just. I'm so done with it. I'm really done with it. I can't play any more. Oh, Assassin's Creed! I forgot about Assassin's Creed. I can't play any more of these games. I can't do any more Ubisoft side missions. I'm done with the publisher in general, as far as things go right now. I've not seen any. I've got no interest in that Skull and Bones pirate game. I mean, I have very little interest in pirate games, full stop. But Jesus, yeah, I put in that previous video. I mentioned that I put in 100. I think 120 hours, somewhere around 100 hours into Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And I have never felt more unsatisfied with the ending of the game. I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. So I don't want another Splinter Cell game if it's going to be in that style of you know, sort of open world, just kind of mess. Absolutely nothing necessarily remarkable about it, nothing sort of out of the ordinary. It's all kind of very you know, just very basic, very straightforward. Here's all these things to do. We want to keep you in this game as long as possible, and then we want to sell you a season pass for more content down the line. I can't do that anymore. So here's the thing: is they talk about sort of this linear versus non-linear approach to game design. They talk about how the original was very sort of designer-led gameplay of walking through narrow corridors, and you know, there was kind of like one path to, you know, to completion. And then they sort of pivot and talk about how chaos theory eventually opened things up and give you a few more options of, you know, do you want to go in guns blazing? Do you want to sort of sneak in through the back? And this is where I start to get a little bit nervous, because it's very easy for me to sort of imagine a sort of open world. Oh, you can approach this base and you can approach that base and you can do this in any order you want, and isn't that great? Personally, not for me. I prefer more sort of narrative driven, you know, sort of well crafted experiences over the sort of wide open, you know, buffet style of gaming. Chaos theory is sort of the perfect balance in my opinion. I hope that they stick to that sort of style and give you a couple options, but don't blow it out too much. Please do not make me climb. I can't climb any more towers. I can't do any more towers. I cannot do any more towers. If I have to climb a single tower to reveal any sort of location in this game, good lord, well, I just won't be playing the game, full stop. So yeah, they talk about, you know, non-linear versus linear. I'm hoping that they, you know, are basically trying to just bring back the chaos theory style of gameplay. If they do that, then, you know, they've got my money already. Another thing they do kind of talk about is the ability to do, they don't actually confirm it, but they suggest that they are developing the game in a way that makes it possible to complete it without killing a single person. Again, great. I absolutely love stealth games that allow you to be basically a ghost, and, you know, nobody knows you're ever there, and you get that nice 100% thing at the end of the mission. But they don't actually confirm that. They just kind of say, oh, you know, we're hoping to make a game that allows you to do that, so, you know, fingers crossed that actually makes it in. I suppose the only other thing that they talk about really is changing the alarm system. So in the previous games, you kind of had almost like a 3 strikes and you're out system. I mean, there were some actions that you could take where it was basically mission over, because there were some missions where you just flat out couldn't kill anybody. But there were some missions, or a lot of the missions, where it's kind of like, oh, you got spotted this many times, it's done. Or you killed this many people, alright, we're pulling you out, Sam, it's over. And they talk about, not too much, but they do talk about re sort of structuring that system in a way that it sounds like you can make a mistake, but then possibly do something else to bring the alarm state back down. I don't know how that's going to play out. I mean, I always used to sort of save scum my way through the old Splinter Cell games, so, you know, this was never, the alarm system was never an issue for me, because I always just save scum my way to 100% completion of, you know, nobody spotted me, nobody knew I was there, and you know, I'd killed as few people as possible. But that could be interesting, especially if they're going with a slightly non-linear approach. In general, like I said, this video does give me hope. They did show off some concept art. Now, obviously concept art is just concept art. There's not a ton that you can take from it. Well, there is kind of bits that you can take from it, but you should whenever you see concept art, I always just take it with a grain of salt and just say, you know, all of this stuff is subject to change. It could all be wiped clean, like, and really the concept art is just Sam Fisher sneaking through the dark and, you know, standing in various sort of like buildings and play, you know, all that sort of stuff. The only part of the concept art that I did see that I thought was interesting, which again gives me the slightest bit of more hope. There is one bit of concept art that it looks like a mission that's taking place on an oil rig, which was like the 3rd or 4th mission in the first game. If we're sticking that closely to you know, the original sort of game, and they're literally going level by level, they're going to say, you know, here's this mission, that mission. We're basically doing the same thing all over again. The Resident Evil 2 sort of ideal scenario that I personally want. Then again, you know, more hope there. Hopefully that's what we're going with. But yeah, in general, you know, there's not really too much to take from this. Here's the bit where I'm a little skeptical. Skeptical is probably the wrong word. Here's where I am still somewhat cautious. Ubisoft, especially over the last 5 to 10 years, I'm thinking back now and I'm really struggling to think of a game that they have put out over the last 5 to 10 years that didn't have the possibility of adding in some sort of, let's say, mechanic for extra cash. Whether it's Assassin's Creed, whether it's Far Cry, whether it's Division, you know, all of that, whether it's For Honor, all of those games are built in a way that allows them to keep sort of like monetizing, you know, sort of little bits of, whether it's cosmetics, whether it's DLC, whether it's extra missions, whether it's whatever. They all have that ability where they can sort of just like plug more stuff in and get more money out of you. Like Assassin's Creed literally has what is it, Helix credits or something like that, where, you know, where you can pay like £5 to reveal all the locations on the map. They all have that. And the reason they have that is because Ubisoft knows that it makes money, which is all fine and dandy. You know, I completely understand this is a business. So for me, because I've seen, you know, their sort of design philosophy change over the last decade, and I've not seen them put out a game that doesn't feature any of that stuff in quite a long time, part of me, or there's something in the back of my head that says there has to be some sort of catch. There has to be some sort of reason why all of a sudden they've decided to make a game that doesn't feature that stuff. I can't think of a single good reason why Ubisoft would put this game together, unless there has been some change in management that I am unaware of, that is trying to sort of shift things in a new direction. I can't think of a single reason why they would put this together, because if you are doing a faithful remake of the original Splinter Cell, but slightly more modernized, apart from a couple of cosmetics here and there maybe, and, you know, with the possibility of DLC missions down the line, there isn't really an opportunity to sort of like monetize this game long term. It's a very sort of like, okay, we sell as many copies as possible and then we're done. You know, maybe you sell like a Game of the Year edition a little later down the line. But so, like I said, there's something in the back of my head that says, why are they making this game? I've no idea. There has to be some catch. And until I learn more information about this game, that sort of voice in the back of my head is going to stay there and going to say there's got to be some catch. But, you know, I could be wrong. The way that they talk about it is if they're trying to set up a platform for future Splinter Cell games and you know, sort of like building things from the ground up and all that jazz. Hopefully, you know, hopefully this comes together in the way that I want it to come together. That's a very, I suppose, selfish, very selfish way to position it. But we'll see what happens. As I said, I probably didn't have to make a video on this. I felt like I had to make a video on this. I was kind of tempted to do more of these type of videos where I just talk and it's not, you know, scripted out. Like I do actually enjoy talking about games in general. Maybe I'll do more of these. Who knows? You know, comment and like, all that, whatever, if you want more of this crap. But yeah, fingers crossed. The way that they talk about this, it doesn't seem like it's coming out, I would guess, until, I'm saying, early 2024 at the earliest. So yeah, that wraps this video up. I've got nothing much else to say on this topic. I've been an Epsayan, you've been a wonderful audience, and I will catch you next time.